Have you ever noticed that the more important a decision feels, the harder it becomes to make? You research, you compare, you ask for advice, you think about it one more day, and then another, until eventually you aren't making a decision anymore. You're chasing certainty. One of the biggest ways lack of self trust shows up in our lives is through overthinking. Not because we don't know enough, but because we don't trust ourselves enough to move forward without guarantees. Most people think the answer is more information or more research, more opinions, maybe even more preparation. Sometimes that helps, but only up to a point. Because eventually, every additional hour creates very little additional clarity. Instead, it creates more anxiety. I've always been someone who hesitates. And when life becomes stressful, I tend to hesitate even more. Growing up, money was scarce. My parents taught me to spend carefully and always look for the best deal. That mindset helped us survive. But eventually, I realized I had carried that mindset into every area of my life, even in business. I would spend hours comparing suppliers, negotiating tiny price differences, searching for the perfect option. Sometimes I'd spend 20 or 30 hours trying to save a relatively small amount of money. And eventually, I realized something. Those 30 hours had a cost. If I had spent that same time thinking strategically, building relationships, or growing a business, I probably would have created far more value than I saved. And that was my first lesson. The second lesson came as the business grew. The more responsibilities I had, the more perfectionism became impossible. At first, I wanted every decision to be perfect, every project to be perfect, every detail to be exactly right. And the result wasn't better work, it was more stress, more hesitation, more overthinking. And eventually, I learned something that completely changed the way I worked. Every morning, I ask myself one question: what is the single most important thing I can do today? And if that got done, it was a successful day. Everything else became secondary. And I stopped trying to do everything perfectly. I focused on doing the most important thing very well. And that shift didn't just change my business, it changed the way I make decisions. It made me a better leader. I stopped trying to control everything. I became clearer about what really mattered. And I had more energy for the decisions that actually moved the business forward. I stopped chasing certainty. I stopped chasing perfection. And I started trusting myself to move forward. And today, when I notice I'm overthinking, I don't ask myself, how do I stop overthinking? I ask something different. Am I missing information? Or am I missing trust? Because those are very different problems. The truth is, self trust isn't tested when life is certain, it's tested when it isn't. And self trust doesn't mean you'll always make the perfect decision, it means trusting yourself to respond to whatever happens next, to learn, to adjust, to grow. Maybe confidence doesn't come from making perfect decisions. Maybe confidence comes from proving to yourself again and again that whatever happens, you will find your way forward. And that is how self trust is built.